Hey there. Thank you so much for listening to Something Super Spiritual. My name is Jeffrey Peck, and I am a psychic medium. If you are seeking conversation with loved ones on the other side, or discussion about spirituality, life after life, and anything in between, join me as we discuss all things spirit. We are collectively experiencing a spiritual awakening right now and recognizing that we are much, much more than we once believed. We don't die, and life doesn't end. We are eternal spiritual beings living in this crazy 3D virtual world of existence. Let's talk about it. Travis, welcome to Something Super Spiritual.
Thank you so much for having me. I just finished with clients, so I was just like switching over super fast, getting out of reader mode and getting into interview mode.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your patience.
Oh, it's all good.
Yeah, it's so good
Yeah.
to meet you.
Oh, thank you. It's really great to meet you too. I gotta say, I absolutely adore your videos on your Instagram, your TikTok.
Oh,
The messages that you have for people are so beautiful and so inspiring and so touching.
well, thank you, friend. I appreciate that.
Yeah, they're just really light filled and love filled. I mean, and that is like the truth.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that so much, and I appreciate you for having me today. I'm excited to chat with you for a bit.
So I gotta say too, I love that big amethyst wand that you have in your video. Yes, that is amazing.
This gets called a fish more times. People are like, I thought you're holding a fish. And I'm like, where do you get fish from this? It's so funny.
So okay, I'm so happy to talk to you. I want to know everything about you. So I see that you are an amazing psychic medium, along
Thanks.
with counselor, coach, in inspiration for people. Where did Travis come from? Have you always been
Well,
connected to spirit, like from the crib?
yeah, I like to think I come from Sirius or no, I'm just kidding. Like probably though.
Yeah.
No, I was born in Ohio.
Okay.
I was born in a small conservative town, in a town where like everyone knew my family.
Right.
My grandpa and my parents owned a pretty popular pizza place where I'm from, and the town that I grew up in it was built on um, old native land, as a lot of towns are,
Yeah.
and just rich with all of this beautiful spiritual history. And the home that my grandparents lived in was one of the first places where I connected to spirit. I always
Okay.
make this joke that like my grandmother let me play with a Ouija board, and all of a sudden I could talk to the dead. My mother hates it when I tell that joke, but I personally love telling it. But in that home is where I started connecting to spirit, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was, family members that had transitioned over that were just,
Oh,
connected with my grandparents
sure.
and all of that. And and also my guides. Like a lot of people, I had imaginary friends.
Yeah.
And I make a joke, like I'm like, well, I just never lost my imaginary friends. They've just always been with me.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't know what any of that was.
Right.
And I would watch TV shows with like, witches and psychics, and my parents would always say like, that's evil or that's the devil. And um and so I never shared. I could always just tell though like what people were feeling, what people were going through. Even at a young age, I could pick up on those things. And later, um, later on in life, as I kind of went through my own healing journey, I
Yeah.
realized that was a part of my own kind of ability.
Yeah.
And so, I decided over the last couple of years to hone that and develop it and use it to help other people as my job,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
also just the way I live my life.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
So when you were sensing the loved ones in spirit along with your spirit
Yeah.
guides, could you tell the difference? Did you know that you like this was your grandfather and this was your
Yeah.
spirit guide? Like, could you tell the
Yeah.
difference?
Yeah, well, I knew them as like my spirit guides is just like my imaginary friends.
Oh, okay.
Um, but my loved ones that had transitioned, or the ones that were connected to my family that had transitioned over, like I knew that it was, like my grandfather's mom, and
Yeah.
because I would see pictures of them, and I'd be like, wait, like I know this person.
Yeah.
I know that they're dead, but they're not really dead. And
Right.
so, yeah, so that's kind of like when I kind of knew, like, oh, okay, we can sense energy. And so, growing up that age, like it's hard to kind of tell your parents and grandparents, like, oh, by the way, I
Right.
see,
Right.
I hear and see people that aren't really there. Um,
Did you see
so
them
I
with your
I
objective eyes?
I could sense them and feel them.
Got it.
I couldn't necessarily see them. To me, like whenever I'm seeing like spirit energy, like my vision will kind of go a little bit blurry, and then I'll see like little twinkles, but I'm not seeing like physical shapes or
Understood.
people.
Yep. I've had that too.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, yeah,
So, uh, okay. You get out of school and you're
yeah,
becoming a young adult.
yeah.
Did you search for like a psychic community or mediumship? Did you understand the difference between the two? Did you find a teacher? What happened next?
Well, when I got out of college or high school, I became a stripper slash drag queen,
Okay.
and I worked in gay bars.
Yeah.
And I never tapped into my spiritual side. I would always, I would have a lot of alcohol, and then when I would be drunk, I'd be like, oh my God, there's a spirit here. And then I would talk to people's loved ones, or I would do like little tarot readings, or,
Yeah.
things like that. But I never thought in a million years that this was something that I could study, or that I could go find a community of.
Right.
Because we didn't really have a lot of it where I grew up in Ohio. It wasn't until later on in my journey where I realized that that you can actually study psychic mediumship and
Mhm.
study healing and study helping people along their path.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that from source until I was ready. Like I had to quit drinking.
Yeah.
I had to do some healing before it was like, all right, cool,
Yep.
next step. And I think that if I had found that community at that time in my life, I wouldn't have appreciated it, or
Yeah.
it wouldn't have resonated for me at that
Oh,
time.
completely. I absolutely believe that it happens for us when it's supposed to, you know,
Yeah.
regardless. There are a lot of us like you who had experienced it since childhood, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm finding more and more there are so many of us that opened up midlife through trauma, or in my case, I became attuned to the Reiki in 2006. And the side
Hmm.
effect for me was the ignition of all the spiritual senses, and so then it's
Yeah.
like coming on full bang. And I'm like, what's happening? I felt like I was losing my mind. Um,
Yeah.
and it's fascinating. But my point is, I truly believe that it happens in its own time. Like if this would have happened to me 10 years before, I wouldn't have been ready either. There was a lot of living and experience that I needed to process, and healing, and uh, trauma awareness. I didn't even recognize any of that until in my mid 30s. And then I was like, ooh, whoa, okay, now I get it. So
Yeah. Same here. And I'm thankful that it worked out the way that it did.
yeah,
I couldn't imagine my life any other way.
yeah, completely. So how long have you been doing this professionally then?
Professionally, like for monies, a little over 2.5 years.
Awesome.
And I do this work full time.
Mhm.
And it's so funny. I had a reading done back in 2017. The psychic's name was Terry. She's crossed over since, but um the first thing she said to me was, you're going to be doing what I do for a living. And I laughed at her. I was like, there's no way. I was like, there is just no way.
Yeah.
I didn't see it for myself. Um, but I think that's what I love so much about this work, is that seeing seeing like what's in people, what they're really capable of,
Oh,
and
yeah.
what they can kind of expand into if they want it.
Mhm.
And so I always think of that. And there'll be times where I'm like sitting in my office and I'll start laughing. I'm like, oh, Terry. Like, like, and I know that she, I know she knows, right? Knowing what
Yeah.
I know about
Oh, yeah.
spirit, but
Yeah.
it's just really funny because I think back to that day and I was like, there's no way. But
Oh,
it didn't, yeah,
totally.
yeah,
You know, in 2006, when that started to happen to me, and about a month into it, I told my Reiki master what I was sensing, what I was feeling, what I was experiencing. And she's just smiled, this really peaceful, all-knowing smile. And she said,
yeah,
yeah, you're going to be a huge channel one day. And I was like, no, I'm
yeah,
not. No, I'm not.
right.
No, I'm not. Oh, yeah. So
Did you
like,
feel like when she said that to you that like you were like, well, here's the responsibility of the universe on my shoulders. Thank you so much for that. Or were you like
not yet.
great?
That came later. That came later. Because back then, so in 2006, Abraham Hicks, Esther, and Jerry
Oh,
she was a channel. I mean, that's what I considered a channel.
yeah.
Like the work of Seth, she was a
Yeah.
channel. That's what my definition of the word channel was. And I said, I'm not a channel. And she said, you need to change your definition of the word channel. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, okay. And well, of course, now I get it. But yeah, the responsibility that you spoke about, yeah, that came later when I really started to understand and witness the healing that was happening for my people in front of me and the
Yeah.
healing that was happening for the people in spirit as I'm, delivering what needs to come through. And
Yeah.
and so often it's somebody coming through that they experienced trauma with, that this person was coming in to acknowledge this and apologize and and to witness this springboard of healing, I call it, for the sitter, for the client. And it's just to receive those emails afterwards just saying, wow, I never could have ever dreamed that I would be willing to listen to them, let alone forgive them. And I haven't forgiven them yet, but I'm now really like questioning and thinking I actually probably could. And that's huge. Huge.
That literally just happened this afternoon with the client that I had in a session.
Yeah.
And I start bringing through the spirit and evidence of the spirit,
Yep.
and the client, like I could see her like tense up. And I
Mm-hmm.
try not to watch clients when I'm reading them or look right at them.
Yep. Me
Just
too.
I get distracted.
Me too. Mm-hmm.
But I'm delivering this, and like I could just tell like she was just not thrilled. But you know what though? She looked right at me and was like, I did not think that this is what I was going to get today, but I realized like I deeply needed that, and it felt so good.
Oh, it's amazing. Like it makes me feel emotional. It gives me chilly bumps. It like I could bust a cry. It's just, yeah, it's
Yeah.
just beautiful. It's really
And
beautiful.
that's been my own experience as well with, when I get readings. She hasn't come through in a while. I had one grandmother that I loved and adored, and one that I loved and adored until I came out, and then she became a big source of my pain and my
Yeah.
awareness of my pain. And when she crossed over, there was no goodbye, there was none of that. Like she left. And and so for a while she was the only family member of mine, that and a great uncle that I've never met, but like I know it's him, that comes through. And I didn't get it until much later, because I would be like mad. I'd be like, why did you come through? I didn't want to hear from you. Then I realized, I'm like, gosh, that's where all my healing really needed to happen.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's enormous. I always tell my people at the beginning, if there's somebody you experience trauma with and you don't want to talk to them, that's totally fine.
totally.
And I think only once I had somebody say no, but they've been really open and receptive. And like one of the first, it was actually the first experience. It was my last practice reading before I like opened my doors.
Yeah,
And it was a lady in England, and I could sense this grandmother behind me. But like when you feel them come in and they're like all like, boom, let's do this, you can feel them
yeah,
right here. This
yeah,
grandmother was back here. And it felt like she was like really being careful to walk forward. And I just got this sense of like she needed permission almost. And I just kind of thought about, I said, do you know Margaret? And she goes, and I was like, uh-oh. I said, if you don't want to talk to Margaret, that's totally okay. It's so fine. And she just
Yeah.
sat there for a second. And she goes, no, I want to hear from Margaret. And it was beautiful, and it was painful, and it was
Mm,
eye-opening for her, because she heard Margaret for the first time and started to
mm,
see that Margaret's life and her experience, not that it's an excuse by any stretch at
right.
all when it comes to abuse.
Right.
However, it was, her life was filled with abuse, and it's all
Yeah.
she knew. And then that anger just set in, and she was just mean to everybody and really, really mean to my sitter, you know. But
Yeah.
anyway, afterwards, she she was speechless. She was over the moon. She emailed me about a week later and went to see a Reiki practitioner and had Reiki done. And then the Reiki practitioner actually brought up this forgiveness that was actually taking place deep on her insides. And she
Wow.
recognized the connection, obviously,
Yeah.
here's Margaret kind of like tapping in a little bit. But to receive that thank you, she really never, she carried that burden and that weight and that pain from the anger, and just being resentful, right? And to feel that lifted from herself was just like, wow. Yeah, it's amazing. So when you talk about the responsibility, I mean, literally, I get off some of these calls and I have to cry for like 10 minutes straight just because it's so
Yeah.
just like, wow, it's amazing to witness this
Yeah.
in
It's
a front row seat.
incredible.
Mhm. We literally
Yeah.
participate in miracle after miracle after miracle.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally feel that. It's funny because I'll be sitting in readings and I'll like things are just coming through and it's just my mouth is just a going and I'm like in like a part of my mind like I'm like what is happening right now?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then, and then I think about it later and I'm like, dang, that's a lot of stuff that people are carrying. But, I think that as our society kind of expands, and our thinking expands, I think, psychics and mediums are starting to play more and more of a role in people's healing processes. And for some of my clients, like I'm just as valuable to them as their therapist, even though
oh,
that's not what I'm doing, but I'm
totally.
just as important
Yep.
with them. And what I love is when I'm giving somebody guidance that's spirit led and they're like, oh my God, my therapist told me the exact same thing. And I'm like, great, then do it.
Yeah. Oh, love it. That's awesome. Um, Speaking of your sessions, so what all do you offer people? I know you do your mediumship and your psychic,
Yeah.
but talk a little bit more about what you offer people.
Well, it just depends person to person. I kind of just have this agreement with spirit that when someone shows up, we just give them, whatever it is that they need.
Mhm.
I used to offer like energy healing sessions and then like soul coaching and people just kept booking readings. And so for me, every reading is different. And
Yeah,
even if you're a client that's been with me for a bit, because I do have some clients that I see on a semi regular basis,
yeah, yeah.
what they get is totally different every single time.
Mhm.
I think for me, I just try to keep it as simple as possible with the least amount of things to kind of throw at people. So
Yeah,
in a session, it's kind of like a blend of psychic blended with mediumship, blended with some soul coaching, and the energy healing is happening as we're kind of going through and
sure.
doing the work together. So, I think of my sessions as like a just a hybrid kind of unicorn magic
Yeah, that's
that
awesome.
yeah, just whatever kind of comes up or whatever is needed.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's always my intention just to leave people better than how I found them.
Yeah,
Like that.
completely.
I'm like, I think I
Always.
used to like when I first started, I put so much pressure on myself of like what kind of evidence I needed to pull through and like how the session needed to look. And like, I'm sure you understand, like there's
Yeah.
some people you could be like, I've got your grandmother here. And the next thing you know, they're just like sobbing and they're like, oh my God. And that's enough for them, right?
Mhm.
For some people, they want more robust evidence and that's okay. And some people that want the psychic reading, they don't necessarily want to know their future. Perhaps maybe they just want to know how to work their energy in alignment with what it is that they want.
Sure.
So I just try to give that kind of holistic, well-rounded, whatever the client needs, type of session.
Yeah. Good. I love that.
Yeah.
So, as you're making your way to where you are now,
Yeah.
what what challenged you? Like, what did you find challenging as you were making your way to knowing you were the spirit career?
Myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a mentor that I love dearly, and he and I talk every couple of weeks. And he's fantastic. He's one of my most favorite humans, and I cherish him dearly. And the very first session, mentoring session that he and I had, because I was very serious. I was like, when I did not start as a medium, I started like reading tarot, and then psychic awareness came in, which I think like I already had psychic awareness when
Yeah.
I was reading tarot. And then the mediumship just kind of started randomly. Like that was something, and I was adamant. I was like, I'm not a medium. And then next thing you know, I've got Grandma Betsy over here who has a message for my sitter. And I was like, well, all right, I guess I don't really get a say in this now, do I? This is I'm a Virgo and I'm very much a perfectionist. And so I was like, I'm gonna be the best medium. Um, and so I was like, I'm taking classes and I'm reading books and I'm doing this. And I still do those things. I'm just not as like intense on it as I was. But
Yeah.
I've eased up a bit. But the first mentor that yeah, his name is Charles, and he's just such God, just an amazing human. And the very first session I had with him, like the first words out of his mouth were, you have to get out of your own way. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. And I'm going to be honest, I think I went like a year not knowing what that meant.
Yeah.
And for me now, it's trusting spirit,
Yes.
trusting myself.
Yes.
It's not up to me to deter or to decipher the information that's coming through. It's just my job to deliver it in a
Yes.
loving,
Oh,
non-judgmental way.
totally.
It is not for me to worry if I have done enough for the client.
Yeah.
I just have to trust that the way that I showed up was enough. And that has helped me in my personal life as well, because I very much will get in my own way. As Esther says, I will knock myself right out of the receiving mode. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah. And
Get it.
so for me, that's been my biggest challenge with my growth, is just getting out of my own way. But
Yeah.
it's a valuable lesson that I cherish learning.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally understand that. I mean, yeah, the perfectionism, the perfectionist has been online since all of this started.
Yeah.
And trying to like uninstall that. The perfectionist.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to be the best that you can be. You want to be as
Mhm.
present and connected and delivering and interpreting properly. And you know what I'm saying? What I'm saying?
Mhm.
Um, and and I know what you mean by knocking yourself out of the receiving mode, because you start to overanalyze what you're getting and like, oh, am I saying this right? Or is this like and then you're like, yeah, totally get it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think, we see shows like Long Island Medium, and then, you see shows like Crossing Over with John Edward and Tyler
Yeah.
Henry.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, and then you see the social media psychics which I'm not knocking because clearly I am one, but, you see people who post their readings and then they've cut down to the highlight reel of the reading.
Totally.
But it's like, it sets this like really interesting. Not to say that readings can't be fluid and be
Yeah.
amazing and every single piece hits, right? I
Mhm.
certainly had those days,
Yep. Yep.
but I think that it's unfair to say that every single session is like that. And
Yes.
every single time it's
Totally.
that fluid and it flows like that. And so I just try to not compare myself to those other
Oh, it's so
mediums.
true. Yeah,
Yeah.
comparison is the ultimate joy stealer. It
It
just like
is.
it just rips that, just sucks it right out of the air.
And anything can look good when you're playing the highlight reel.
Oh, honestly, okay, so you're absolutely right. So you know, after watching all of these people, I adore all of them. And
Love them.
and Tyler, I was watching one of the first YouTube readings that he had posted, and it was the whole hour. You know, it wasn't the highlight reel. It was the whole hour. And you know how he scribbles
Yeah.
and pauses and scribbles? Yeah, he had some serious pauses as he was obtaining the information and then
Yeah.
communicating it. And I remember being at Arthur Finley because uh that particular, you know, I was so afraid of the pause. And every time I would feel, you know, I'd start to sense, I'm taking too long. I'm taking too long. Everybody else is so much better than me, you know. And one of my teachers said, you know what, don't be afraid of the pause. Do not
Yeah.
be afraid of the pause. And that was the most amazing piece of advice for me because I was afraid of it. You know, I felt like I wasn't as good or as quick or as, you know, as everybody else. And then watching Tyler and his pauses, I was like, oh my God, it's all of us. We all have these
Yeah.
moments, you know?
Yeah. I love the pauses. I used to hate, they used to make me so nervous.
Yes,
Now I love them because like I feel like if I'm pausing, that's an opportunity for me to get back into the receiving mode.
totally.
And I think sometimes, like, especially more in front of a client, like so I come from 17 years of cosmetic of uh, uh being working with customers in the beauty industry.
Okay.
And so you know, I always wanted to deliver like the very best for the customer. And in that type of setting, it's quick, it's efficient, it's direct and to the point. And but readings are just so different than that. I think sometimes the information can be quick and concise, but there are also those times for the pauses.
Hmm.
And I'm more concerned about getting it right than being right. And if that means
Yes.
that I have to pause for a little bit longer, then baby, we pause in just a little bit longer
Oh yeah,
and you're going to be
absolutely.
okay with it.
Yep. This is a question I get asked a lot, and I love to
Okay.
ask others.
Okay.
With the experience that you've had with all of your readings, with your own personal spiritual experiences, your mystical experiences, what do you think happens after we pass?
Oh, I still don't know. That's like the most comfortable answer I think I've ever given to that question. I think when I first started this work, I was like, I'm so sure, and this is what happens. And now I have genuinely no idea. What I would like to think happens is that we return back into greater consciousness, whatever that looks like. I don't think my human mind can even wrap itself around what greater consciousness even is. Like it's something I feel,
Yeah.
but I don't have words for it. I like to think we go back into that greater consciousness. I like to think that if we want to come back, we can, but I don't know. And I think that for me, that's a really safe answer. I'm always leery of anybody who is like so sure.
Agreed. I wouldn't say it's a safe answer. I'd say it's a very honest answer
Yeah.
because the truth is, well, let's be honest, none of us are going to know until we get there, you know?
Right.
Even the people who are adamant about what happens. You know, there are a lot of theories based on, you know,
Yeah.
what we experience through our readings, and I know it's, you know, beyond awesome, but I also know that there's no black and white with spirit. It's not the same for all of us. It's not this, we don't, yeah, there's so many different experiences that we have
Yeah.
heard in their expression as they're coming through, you know. And even in the books that we read, did you read the book the Afterlife of Billy Fingers? Do you know that book?
No, but I'll have to
Oh,
read it. I love to read, so
it
I'll
is
definitely check
fantastic.
it
I,
out.
I read it like
Yeah.
10 years ago and I just had to buy it again because it's absolutely incredible. But like his experience, he's in spirit and his sister opened up after he passed and he started coming through to her. So she started writing down everything that he was saying. And here's this book. And he was telling her his experience of the afterlife and what he went through from the moment he got there to, a couple years into it where he's been evolving over there.
Okay.
And it's just so beautiful. But yeah, I just think it's so different for all of us. And I think no, that wasn't safe. That was very honest.
I think that I appreciate anybody that has, a certain perspective or the theory on it. I think anytime we get into spirituality and we say that this is absolutely for certain, we
Right.
start hitting religious ideology territory.
Completely.
And for me, spirituality is it's my safe space.
Yeah.
It's where I just connect with for me, true spirituality for me is just connecting with myself. That's it.
Mhm.
Everything else is just a part of this amazing vibrational universe that we live in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I there's very few things at this stage in the journey that I'm absolutely certain of. One of those things is that we will die, or
Yep.
leave this physical body,
Yep.
and that for the most part we're going to all pay taxes.
Well, that's true
But
too.
but yeah, I heard this one psychic medium, and they were talking about, like, they were answering questions and like what happens if you go into a reading or sitting and the person that you want to talk to like doesn't come through, which happens,
Oh,
totally
yes,
happens.
totally.
And her explanation was it was because that person is actually working, they have a spirit job, and they couldn't get off work to come to the session. And I was like, I know good and well that when I cross over, if I have a job and I have to submit a time off request, I'm calling the manager.
Oh my, I'm gonna pull a Karen.
I will be the biggest Karen in spirit, because if I can have a job, I can also be a
Seriously.
Karen.
Absolutely.
Like, that is not happening. I would tell you something that's not happening today, and that's me getting a job over there in spirit.
Totally. Yeah, that response and or I actually mentioned this a few shows ago, I think, but somebody came to me a couple years ago and she was just thick in the grief,
Yeah.
beside herself.
Yeah.
And she told me that like 2 weeks before that she had sat with a medium and the like, I think she had lost her husband recently. It was really
Uh-huh.
she was pretty in the thick of it. It was just a couple months.
Sure.
And this other medium told her that she couldn't talk to him because he already reincarnated. Oh, I was just like, oh,
Oh,
sweetheart, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
come on, people,
Yeah, it gets tough. I see, like, so, and this is, I think, where it's like hard for me. Like, my human side steps in and wants to be judgmental and be like, that's not right or whatever,
yeah,
right? And like,
yeah,
I acknowledge I'm all of the experience. So like, I don't beat myself up too much when I get judgmental, because I'm like, well, that's part of being human. So I'm gonna judge
yeah,
away.
yeah.
But but I have a hard time because I see a lot of people on social media talk about this work and what it is and what it isn't. And I see those things come up where it's like, well, this in whether it's true or not, if the sitter is open, not open, in grief, in my opinion, that's just not something you tell someone. Like, it's
No,
your fault that you can't talk to your husband. Like, how awful
yeah, seriously,
is
that
that?
was
That person's
damaging.
already in grief.
Mhm.
Yeah. Even if it's true, like, maybe we just don't say it. Like, I came from like 17 years of being in cosmetics, right? So like, I can say something that's like not that great in a way that makes you like really look forward to it. So, I think along with ethics, we should teach like diplomacy
Yes,
in some situations.
completely.
I think it might be beneficial.
Yes. That's so funny. I had a little like when I was, I don't know, like 10 or 12, I had this little plaque that I just thought was so hilarious. It was sitting on my dresser and it says diplomacy, the ability to tell someone to go to hell in a way that they actually look forward to the trip.
Exactly.
And it's like, yeah, and it's a mystery. Like, why don't they come through when this, now granted, we know by now that spirit knows the need. They know
Yeah.
this need that is way beyond our even comprehension. We can't wrap our brain around it. They know so much more than we could possibly know. But yeah, it's that question. It's a mystery, you know.
I have one theory, and just a theory, just my own opinion. I don't know this for certain. I've had clients before who come to me and they're like, "Oh, I want to talk to so and so." I'm like, "Okay, great." And then, they'll come through here and there, but the connection's not quite as strong as I want it to be. And I'll just ask, like, "Hey, what was your intention with wanting to connect with this person?" And they'd be like, "Well, I talk to them all the time, but I just want to hear it from someone else." And to me, I'm like, so I believe we can all talk to our loved ones who have crossed over. You don't have to be a medium
100%.
professionally do that. I think we all can. I think sometimes that's almost even like a lesson for the person. Like, just trust what you're getting and trust what you're hearing.
Yeah.
That's one theory I have, but who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's so funny because when I first started doing readings, if I couldn't like get the person that people wanted, I would like get so like hard on myself and I'd be like, why couldn't I get that?
Oh
It
yeah,
was her
yeah. Hmm.
dad. That's so
Yeah.
obvious. Um, One time I was even reading for somebody and I was like, gosh, I was like, I just keep seeing like your husband just being so distant, but I can't figure out why. But he's like really far away, and she's just like, like she's letting me just go on. And I'm like, he died. And like silly me, I should have gotten that, right? That's just a she was like, yeah, he's dead. Like she goes, yeah, we can't. I was like, but it's almost like you can't talk to him. Like I was like,
Oh
it
my
was like,
gosh.
hello, the call is coming from inside the house, Travis. And thankfully, she had a really good sense of humor about it. Like she was very understanding, and that's just a silly mistake on my part, right? Um, but yeah, I used to like kind of beat myself up, and now I'm just like, whatever.
Oh,
Like if it doesn't work and the client's upset, I'm like, here's your money back. Have a great
yeah.
day.
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
We give them back give them their money back. And it's
Yeah.
so true that a couple years ago, when I started I started about 2.5 years ago too, like professionally.
Oh, I love
So
that.
when I too, had those moments where I really could have been hard on it. Like, and I would just be like a wreck on my insides and just feeling a little bit of guilt and a little bit of shame and like, what did I do wrong? And how could have I missed that? And yeah, and that's like, no, that doesn't do anybody any favors, And so
Yeah.
I figured out a way to get, just to kind of move past that.
I have a question for you that
Yes.
I'm always curious about. Was there ever a time in your experience where you like before you would give a reading, you would just be like so terrified and you just like hope that the person just canceled?
Oh, yeah, 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 sure. Yep. Yep.
What was that for you? Did
Um,
you figure out like what that feeling was?
I think, um, here's what I know. Um, it was way bigger than my normal nerves. It was way
Yeah.
bigger. And
Yeah.
I learned that as it was getting closer and as it was getting closer, this anxiety kept creeping up and creeping up. And I was like, oh, maybe this is going to happen. Oh, please don't let this happen. But I've come to find out it was my sitter who had the massive anxiety. It was my sitter that I was tapping into. It was their anxiety because she was afraid she was going to hear from her dad. She didn't want to hear from her dad. And it was one of those things. So I was
Oh,
like, oh, that makes sense to me.
I never thought about that. Because I don't get it so much anymore, like here
Right.
and there. And I was just like, and I was like, well, I really want to be doing this work and I believe in the work and I know I'm ethical. So
Yep.
like I'm like trying to check off all the logical things,
Yep.
right? And like I didn't even think of that because like before I get readings, like I get nervous.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I know what this work is, right? So I can only imagine somebody's ever had one. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, I absolutely do think that that's what I was feeling.
Yeah. Huh. Okay.
And yeah, yeah. So That's a good question. You have any more questions?
I have all kinds of questions. So do you still sit in practice development circles?
Yes. I'm not currently right at the moment. I'm kind of giving myself a break.
Yeah.
But since 2019, it was full time basically.
Do you get nervous reading for other psychics and mediums?
There was a time where I would have this. I felt like it was more judged. I felt more
Ooh,
judged. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, not all the time, not all the time. I think it was really more this one particular circle I was involved in, but I totally understand that.
Yeah. Do you know what's funny though? Is like when I'm getting a reading from another practitioner, I don't feel like I'm judging the right. Like I look at them with like such like adoration and love,
Mhm.
where I'm like, I don't care. You could be completely wrong, and I'm still enjoying my time here.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but it's so funny because like that's always like my biggest thing with sitting in practice circles is that I get this like fear of like I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna, is it gonna be right? But that's just me hopping in my own way.
Absolutely. And that hopping in your own way is just, well, it's been, a big hurdle for me to get through, along with getting in your own way. I've discovered that I had my own expectations and demands that I
Yeah.
hadn't quite recognized fully consciously. Like, for instance, I've always been really visual. Like I see everything,
Hmm.
color, just really clear, really lucid. Um, my hearing, I've always felt like I felt like I was the deaf medium. I just was like, I don't hear anything. And I totally thought I was going to hear something on my outside of my ear. And then it was like, oh, we're not going to hear it from the outside. Then I thought I was going to hear some
Yeah.
lady's voice on the inside of my head. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
I've never heard any other person's head voice on the inside of my head. So then I realized that how I receive clairaudience is
Hmm.
when I am in the receptive mode, sitting in the power, and
Yep.
all of a sudden these words just like plop in my head, and the chunks of like paragraphs, and that's how I get my clairaudience,
Yeah.
right? So I having had these expectations and demands how I believed it should happen, I was like, oh, I was totally blocking myself. Now I'm
Yeah.
firing on all cylinders, and I'm just like, and now I understand because I was able to be like, all right, let's just relax into this and let it be what it's supposed to.
Yeah, no, same here. Same here. I was like expecting like a booming voice from the sky or so. I don't know what I was expecting, but yeah, not what I was expecting. Thankful, I think, because like I think, if I heard someone else's voice next to me, I might start questioning my own sanity. But
Yeah,
yeah, no, I'm with you. The clairaudience is not what I thought.
yeah, totally. Um, so speaking of voices on the outside, this is another question I get often. So in IRL, normal
Uh-huh.
life, out at
Yeah.
the restaurants, wherever you're in an old hotel, he, we can sense the energy, we can sense spirits, we can
Mhm.
sense spirituality. There's, it's either active, or it's a little bit dull. You can feel it. But what's it like for you? Do you walk around aware, sensing? Will you go up to somebody on the street and say, "Hey, I have a message for you"? What's your thought?
I don't. I know that that is like a popular thing to see on social media, seeing these messages delivered publicly.
Yeah,
And I know that there's shows like Long Island Medium where like
yeah,
that's the show. What I think people forget is that's a TV show.
yeah,
Those people that are receiving the reading, like that is scripted. They're in on it. They've signed a waiver. Like
yeah,
they know what that they're about to receive a surprise reading, right? For me, it's like it's an ethical thing. I don't deliver messages unless someone comes to me specifically for a message and we're sitting down in a professional capacity.
yeah, yeah,
I for the first time in my life, I have a job, this job, that I have work boundaries.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I'm like, I'm like, you know what? I do readings from this time to this time. For me, it's really more so I'm just following my own impulses out in the world when I'm out there. And so I was out with some friends the other night, and we're in this small gay bar, and there's this gentleman at the bar, and I just got this impulse. It was like, talk to him. And so I was like, okay. And so he sees me before I can even like start walking. He immediately walks up to me and he goes, I don't know why, but I feel like I need to talk to you. And then found out like he is a shaman that just moved from Arizona to where we were. And I was like, oh, there it is.
I love
But I'm
this.
not, I love it too. So for me, it's like I just follow my impulses. And if that impulse is, hey, take this street and I'm going to see a person that's experiencing homelessness that maybe they need food, then I'm just going to get I'm just not even asking questions. I'm just getting the food. Here you go. Take
Yeah.
care.
Yep.
That's the way that I serve spirit, is I just follow these impulses and just trust that I'm being led where I need to be. But I will never go up to someone, be like, hey, your dead wife has a message for you. I just don't know where they're at emotionally and if they're wanting to even hear that, right? Because
Yeah.
there's, because I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I just don't.
I
And I
don't
don't
either.
receive those things. I like to think that I just have good boundaries. I turn it off. If I'm in a space, I'll stay in hotels that have a rich history.
Yeah.
I'll be in homes that have a rich history. I'll feel those imprints,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me. I might dream about something that happened in this space. We were at this Airbnb over the weekend with my friends, and it was a beautiful Victorian home, tons of history. And I had dreams about it,
Yeah.
about things that happened in the home. But that's it. Like, we're just sitting at the breakfast table. My friends are like, how'd you sleep? I'm like, oh, well, I think I met the owners last night. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I don't. I just I refrain from
Yeah.
working after hours.
Ethically, for me as well. I just don't think it's, I think it's, I think it's difficult for somebody to have that thrust upon them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm with you totally. It's funny. I was at a birthday party the other night at my neighbors, and I met like, I don't know, 15 of my other neighbors. And when you're meeting new people, you're introducing yourselves, and always the next question from them is, so what do you do? And this
Yeah.
lady, okay, so think Golden Girls, think Dorothy.
Love it.
Same hair, same hard exterior. Now remember the look that Dorothy would give Stan? Just
Yes.
that cowl.
Yes.
This lady says, so what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a medium. And she gives me the Dorothy look. What?
Yeah.
And I told her again. She goes, why? And I told her, I said, well, a lot of people want to know that their loved ones are still here, that there's the continuity of life, and that they're still here and not missing out on their lives, or maybe they need closure, or lots of reasons. And she says, my husband died 2 months ago. I never want to hear from him again. And I was like, well, okay then.
He doesn't want to talk to you either. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I mean,
yeah.
funny.
It is funny. So I have decided to dip my toe back out into dating.
Okay.
So I'm back on Tinder.
Okay.
And going on dates and meeting people. And it's so funny. As soon as people ask, like, what do you do? And it's just kind of like I used to kind of brace for impact. Now I'm like, oh, it is what it is. And so I'll tell them. And it's so funny. It's either this like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I live in the Pacific Northwest though, so it's like super embraced here. But the occasional, I get the like, oh well, if you're a medium, who's around me? And I'm like, leave me alone, get out of here.
Yeah.
Or they'll be like, I don't believe in mediums. I'm like, great, I don't believe in you either. Get out of here.
Yes.
So yeah, it is funny though when people do ask, like, what do you do? And you're like, well, this is gonna go one of two ways. So
yes. Yep. And I'm totally open for it.
Totally. Either way, I'm like, throw me what you got, because it's not changing.
That's interesting. I met my partner with on one of the apps. And I had just been going through a divorce. It was almost over with. And I was just honestly, I was just looking for like-minded people, friends. I wasn't looking
Yeah.
for dates. I wasn't looking for hookups. I was just looking for like-minded friends. I was living up there in the Seattle area. And I I on my profile, it stated I'm a medium. This is what I do. This is what happened. This is blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I happened to be in San Francisco visiting my friends, and I happened to be 1,000 feet away from Evan. And he saw me on the app and he saw my profile and he messages me and he says, I absolutely love what you do. And since then, we became really fast, close friends that just morphed into this amazing relationship. So I I hope that happens for you too.
I thank you. I appreciate that. And that's an amazing story. I there was a part of my life, a big part of my life where, I wanted people to like me so bad and
Mhm.
just wanted to be loved so bad. And I remember this one time I was one of my first jobs was a makeup artist. I started in the beauty industry. And I was going on this date with this guy, and he was like it was in Ohio, and he's like very like butch and hyper mask. And I remember going to like Abercrombie and spending like $120 on an outfit I would never wear just to show up for this date. So I didn't look like this like flamboyant makeup artist thing. Right. And I'll never forget. I got sat down by one of the girls I worked with, and she looked at me and she was like, don't you dare ever change who you are to make someone else happy. I didn't listen to her, but but that is a lesson that's come kind of full circle for me now and where I'm at, because I think in this work, you don't have a choice but to be authentic.
Yeah.
To do clean, ethical work that feels really good, that you're in alignment with, and help other people, genuinely help them along their path and genuinely allow them to hear messages from spirit. Whether that, and I'm not like a big person. I'm like, oh, you've got to give up drinking, or you've got to give up this, or you have to live this way. I don't do that. I think
Yeah.
whatever works for someone. If it's in your way, then absolutely change it. And for
Sure.
me, what was in my way was people pleasing
Yeah.
and the getting in my own way. And so it's actually felt really great going on dates, because it's like I feel so free and I don't feel stuffy and I don't feel like I'm just trying to be someone to make someone else
Oh,
happy.
that's
And
awesome.
it feels so good. And so, but yeah, I don't think if I had started spiritual work that I don't know if I would have gotten to this place
Mhm.
before. I genuinely don't know, but I'm thankful for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
So, okay. Wow, we've been talking for almost an hour. So tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
Yeah. So you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Travis Warrior Unicorn. It's just Travis Warrior Unicorn, not Travis Warrior Unicorn with a one, Travis Warrior Unicorn misspelled. There are scam accounts out there, and they're only getting worse for people in the spiritual community. I'm not the only person who deals with it. I just happen to be dealing with it a lot right now because my Instagram account has hit critical mass and it's just shooting off, which I'm so grateful and thankful for. But with that comes scam accounts. So if you're listening, just word to the wise, no ethical practitioner is DMing you, offering you a reading, telling you that they have a message from spirit for you. Most of us don't have multiple accounts. Most of us just have one account.
Right.
And if you want to book an appointment with us, you have to book through our websites. My website is travisholp.com. And that's where you can find me.
That's fabulous. Yeah, I experienced that too on Instagram. I started
Mhm.
receiving these messages from friends, and they're like, something's wrong, something's wrong. And I had four of them out there.
Yeah.
And so, you're trying to report them, get them blocked, get them removed, all
Mhm.
that stuff. It's the Wild West. So after I messaged you through your website the other day,
Yeah.
I got like 5 follows by all of the
Uh-huh.
Travis Warrior unicorns misspelled.
Yep. Uh-huh.
And I just like
Yeah.
blocked them all immediately. But I started to get nervous thinking, did I just go to a fake website and give one of these
Yeah.
fraud people my information? And then you emailed me and I was like, oh, phew, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. These fraud accounts. And the thing is that like they stay alive or so robust because people pay them. And
Yeah.
people give them money because people just want clarity or peace or healing. And So my just general rule of thumb is if somebody is DMing you asking you for money and you don't know them, don't give them money.
Totally. Well, Travis, thank you so much for being here. This was super fun. I feel like I was just catching up with an old friend that I haven't talked to for a while.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeffrey, for having me. This was amazing.
Yeah, this was super fun. Thank you very much. And we'll be seeing you again soon, hopefully.
Sounds good.
Thank you again for listening to the Something Super Spiritual podcast. If you know someone who would enjoy this episode, please do share it with a friend. For show notes, links, and to purchase a mediumship reading, my website is somethingsuperspiritual.com. You can also easily subscribe and follow the show on your favorite app, sign up for my newsletter for bonus content, and to keep the conversation going, you can easily join the Facebook community. It's all right there at the website, somethingsuperspiritual.com. Signing off for now, namaste.